growing up, I wanted to be white. Everyone has this canon event, right? A moment that really changes them, you know? It quietly shapes you even if you don't realize it until years later. And when I was a kid, all I ever wanted was to be a white person. To give a little context, I grew up in Nairobi, Kenya, and I went to an American international school. It sounds pretty cool, right? Global community, a lot of different cultures that you get to learn. And it was actually really cool growing up there. But when I was in school, I wanted to fit in. I wanted to make friends. I wanted to blend in really well. I really wanted to be liked. I had this desire to make friends. So for the first time in my life, I felt different. I didn't like the fact that I was different. That was not really what I wanted. I never really felt different because I grew up in Korea as a kid, but then I went to Kenya in elementary school and my identity started to shift a little bit. In my school, they emphasized diversity. I mean, that was a cool part because a lot of people from different countries, like more than 50 countries, came to the school and we all got educated together. We got to bond, we got to play together, you know, hang out and everything. And it was confusing. And at times it was very isolating. And at school, people who were seen as cool, normal, or aspirational, they were all white. I mean, no one explicitly told me that, but it was kind of everywhere. It was in the way teachers gave more attention to certain kids. It was in the way some people just sometimes kind of laughed at my Korean lunch or mispronounced my name. Or it was in the characters we saw in textbooks or TV or school plays or musicals. So I started to distance myself from my skin, from my language, from me, essentially. And I remember this time when I was looking into my mirror and I was like, wow, I really wish I was white, or Asian at least. It would be a perfect balance. White enough to be accepted, or Asian enough to still feel unique in a way. Or at least to me, I kind of saw that as like the only version of Asian that was seen as attractive or popular. And that became my silent obsession. I try to act more Western. I try to talk in a certain way, you know, try to dress like the other kids, or even lunch. I would just ask my mom to pack me sandwiches or pasta instead of Korean lunch, you know, with side dishes of kimchi and stuff like that because I just didn't like the smell. I thought that I would get made fun of. I didn't want to be seen as all the other Korean kids at school. I just wanted to be different. And for me, being different in a good way was just seen as being whitewashed. And I really took it as a compliment when someone said, you don't really seem that Korean, right? It kind of hurts to even say that out loud right now because I realized how deeply I had internalized that being who I actually was wasn't enough. But things got even more complicated because while I was trying to act more Western in school, I was still in Kenya. I'm not Kenyan, I'm not American, and I wasn't fully Korean in the eyes of other Koreans because I never really hung out that much with other Koreans. So the real question was like, who was I? You know, at times I didn't really feel like I belonged anywhere. I'm too Korean for my international friends, but I'm too international for my Korean relatives. And I felt too foreign in the country that I lived in. I think a lot of the third culture kids, especially Asian kids, growing up in global or Western spaces could sort of relate what I'm talking about. You know, that feeling of being everything and nothing at the same time. And I think the worst part is I didn't even realize I was rejecting myself, you know? It wasn't until years later after I left that environment I looked back at myself and I was like, whoa, what was I thinking? Like, how did I end up feeling ashamed of where I came from? Like, it was all in the small moments when I thought about it, laughing along when people made jokes about Asians, overcorrecting my English accent, feeling weirdly proud when someone forgot that I was Korean. I thought that I was adapting, I thought that I was fitting in, but I think I was slowly erasing myself. And that's my Asian canon event, wanting to be white. But I think those moments really change you. Sometimes they break you a little, but they also become the moment where you begin to rebuild. I won't lie and say that I'm fully healed and I never feel out of place anymore, but I've started to understand the value in being an unapologetically Korean. Not to prove a point, but just quietly, proudly myself. And I think I'm really learning to unlearn, to stop associating white with better, or to stop shrinking just to make other people more comfortable. I think to anyone out there who's just ever wished that they were someone else just to fit in, I see you, I know what you mean. And if you're Asian, especially growing up outside of your home country, navigating this mix of culture can feel like you're being torn in pieces sometimes. But I want you to know that your story, your culture, your identity, your ethnicity, where you come from, however messy or confusing it feels, it has worth. You don't need to be white, you don't need to be Asian, you just need to be you, and that's more than enough. It's okay to be different. Like growing up, I used to shapeshift a lot, change how I talked, what I wore, what music I said I liked. Not because I was fake, but I just wanted to belong. But I think trying to fit in all the time creates this self-embarrassment. Not because you got caught doing something wrong, but because deep down you know that you weren't being true to yourself. And to me, honestly, that hurts way more than being excluded. Because you start to feel like you're abandoning yourself, you're second-guessing everything you say, or how you laugh, how you dress, what makes you you. So it's okay to walk your own path, to embrace where you come from, to think differently, to dress how you want, to be who you are. And I think that's why it's very important for you to leave the environment that you're in every once in a while, or at least once in your life. because it kind of puts everything into perspective. You look back on yourself, you think more about the past actions that you've done or the way that you used to think. You look back on everything and you really get to reevaluate yourself. I think canon events don't really define you forever, but they do open your eyes. And sometimes I think the greatest growth comes after you've questioned everything about who you are. So it's okay to be yourself. It's okay to embrace the place that you come from. It's okay to be proud of your culture. I'm not really proud when I talk about this, but looking back at it now, I can see how deeply lost or confused I was. But I don't really think that's necessarily a bad thing, because surprisingly, I thought I was the only one going through this, but I'm not. You know, I've met many people after coming out to the real world, and I realized that a lot of people actually go through this, especially if they're in the environment where they're not the main focus or they're the main standard. You get to experience it. You get to kind of question why you're the way you are, and you question yourself all the time of why you're so different. But because I have those moments, I can kind of look back at it and not really cringe as much, because it's normal for people to be like that. Yeah, well, that was my Asian canon event. I hope everyone who's watching this will do well wherever they are, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.